vibe, we shine on the light. We all over the world, chat night Africa. We all over the world, chat night Africa. Welcome to chat night, we bring you good vibe, we shine on the light. Welcome to chat night, we bring you good vibe, we shine on the light. We all over the world, chat night Africa. We all over the world, chat night Africa. Welcome to chat night, the only place that we give you good vibe. Chat night Africa. Welcome to chat night, all over the world we are shining the light. Chat night Africa. Welcome to chat night.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's edition of Voices of Africa. I was in Bamenda in the early 80s when President Paul Biya came visiting shortly after he became the president of the Republic. This was a triumphant visit akin to Jesus Christ entering Jerusalem. Traditional dances thundered from the nooks and crannies of the town. Women ululated at the top offices, effusively welcoming the president. There was electricity in the air. But that's the honeymoon. Today, President Paul Biya is facing an armed uprising in a place he affectionately described as his second home. So, what went so wrong? That's where the conversation begins tonight. I am Divine Chamukong, anchoring this broadcast from Washington, D.C. metropolitan area.
We love Chat Night Africa. Keep watching Chat Night Africa.
To take some very sorted questions on the platform, we have live from London, Dr. Elvis Mboge. He is a political science lecturer at the University of Biya, Cameroon, and he is also the CPDM subsection president for Northeast London. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me now in welcoming Dr. Elvis Mboge on the platform.
Thank you very much, Divine, for having me on your platform. Thank the barrister too for giving time for us to meet on the platform. Thank you, televiewers, and we hope we exchange some brilliant ideas that will help our nation move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Elvis Mboge, CPDM subsection president for Northeast London, live from the UK.
Thank you very much for having me, Divine. Thank you so much.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's a debate. I call it crossfire, and it's going to be very hot. If you're a cardiac patient or you are likely to develop a cardiac arrest or heart failure, this show is not for you. Ladies and gentlemen, join me now in welcoming the distinguished barrister, attorney at law, barrister who, for connecting from the United States, he will be opposing or prosecuting the case on the platform Voices of Africa tonight, Barrister Aneneba Akufo.
Thank you so much, Mr. Divine Chamukong, and of course, thank you to our distinguished Dr. Elvis Mboge for taking time out at 2 a.m. I know it's, I'm guessing that's right. That's what the time is down there in London. So, you know, to take time to say things about our continent, Africa, and of course, where we come from, our cradle, which is Cameroon, of whatever extraction you're coming from. So again, thank you so much. Hopefully we get to know one another on this platform and discuss something that's very pertinent and educative for our people. Again, it's a pleasure and honor again to be on your platform, Mr. Chamukong.
Barrister Aneneba Akufo.
We love Chant Night Africa. Keep watching Chant Night Africa.
You are watching Chant Night Africa live from Washington, D.C. metropolitan area. And I'd like to inform you ahead of time that at some point on the show, I will put on the platform the bullfight. I've described it as the bullfight because the case will be prosecuted by Neba Kufo, and I can tell you that Dr. Elvis Mboge, a political science lecturer, a political scientist, has promised a defense on the show today. Stay tuned for the fireworks. To take my first question will be the political scientist, Dr. Elvis Mboge. Dr. Mboge, in my introduction, I said that, or I described the frenzy, the electric atmosphere that characterized President Biya's visit, not only to Bamenda, but also in Biya. Now, in these two Anglophone provinces or regions in Cameroon is where Mr. Biya is facing his toughest challenge. What went so badly wrong?
Thank you very much, Mr. Divine. Nothing went badly wrong. The nation grows, and if the nation grows, the nation finds experiences and gets challenges. And I will tell you this, President Paul Biya is a God gift to Cameroon because he is a man with an eye of care for every Cameroonian. From the day President Paul Biya came into office, his first move was to bring Cameroonians together, Rassemblement, the CPDM party, Cameroon Democratic Movement, Rassemblement. That is President Paul Biya's mission. And where we say we are lucky and we are blessed as a nation, it is because President Paul Biya has not removed an eye out of that mission. He is focusing on it till date. And that is why Cameroonians and the world at large are giving him that support for him to continue doing his job that he was called upon to do for the Cameroonian people.
I can understand why you would effusively, you would throw the flowers, but the reality on the ground, admittedly or factually, is not the same. It's not the case. If Mr. Biya was that popular, obviously, there wouldn't be an armed rebellion in the very places he called his home. Would he declare war on Vomeka, where he was born?
President Paul Biya never declared war. He is the head of state, for God's sake. What President Paul Biya has always done was to call Cameroonians together. Those who ever, for what reason, carried out protests, which were cooperative protests, normal cooperative protests that were morphed into, of course, civil protests, and in turn got into, protesters bearing arms. These are the people who declared war against the state of Cameroon.
You are watching Voices of Africa. Dr. Mboge just fell off the line. He will be joining us back. As you heard, he disputes vehemently the claims that Mr. Biya declared war in the Anglophone regions of Cameroon. I'm going to bring up at this point, while we wait for the barrister to come back on the line, I'm going to bring on, while we wait for Dr. Elvis Mboge to come on the line, I'm going to bring on the barrister, attorney at law in the United States, lawyer, and Neneba Akufo on the platform. Neneba Akufo, would you say, given the situation on the ground, Paul Biya is part of the problem, or he is a part of the solution, sir?
Yes, Mr. Nchamukong, once again, thank you so much for getting us on this platform. I think Mr. Biya has always been the part of the problem in Cameroon. Him, his CPDM, and his political entourage has always been the problem in Cameroon from the get-go. The esteemed professor, said that Cameroon has always been, it's a nation that's moving ahead. It has its challenges. And you ask him some sort of a rhetorical question, whether Paul Biya will declare war on Vomeka, or whether places where he is popular he can absolutely go to. Now, there was one clip I was watching online, and I saw the late Jerry Rawlings. He was driving through the streets of Accra. There was traffic. He decided to get out of that car and was, putting, people into different perspectives, make sure the traffic was flowing correctly. That was somebody who was loved by his people. He could go anywhere and everywhere in Ghana without being chastised. Mr. Biya has never. There is a war ongoing between the Republic of Cameroon and the former British Southern Cameroons, or whatever name you want to call them. There is an ongoing civil war. If that is a leader who is forward-looking, he should have or would have at some point gone to Bamenda or gone to Biya to talk to the people. Rather, he sends his surrogates to go around peddling falsehoods that there is peace in the country, or there is advanced democracy, as my brother rightly said, that Paul Biya is a gift to Cameroon. What a travesty. This is, I just hope the professor comes back online so that we can ask how he terms Biya to be a god in Cameroon. The last time I knew that you term someone god on this planet was in 1450 something, when Pope Nicholas, he was the Pope at that moment. He came up with the doctrine of discovery, because at some point in history we equated the popes as Jesus Christ or akin to God. So that's what happened in 1452 with the first papal bull. The later ones came up in 1490 something. And of course, that the first Europeans who came to Cameroon were the Portuguese with the Rio dos Cameros. So this was based on the assertion of this particular Pope. That is what you call God, and that's what he does to his people. And if you don't know, what that papal bull said was, go ye and conquer these lands of pagans, heathens, and all those who do not adhere to the Christian religions. Conquer them, take their land and take their wealth. And based on that premise, these people went out and conquered the world. They came to America, they came to Africa, and they did what they did. So if you're equating Paul Biya to God, then that's an absolute travesty. And I don't think that's something you should be saying.
I guess he'll come up to explain to us how Paul Biya is a gift to Cameroon with the war going on. I don't know, does it mean a gift to prosecute the war the way it's doing, or what? I think we'll get the clarifications from Dr. Elvis Semboge, and people will be given an opportunity to question him and also question you. Barrister Neneba Akufo, you live in the United States. You've practiced law here for a very long time. If you are the president of the United States and the state of Texas decide that, we don't want to be part of the United States, what are you going to do? That's a declaration of war, isn't it?
Absolutely not. It is. No,
How
absolutely
is it not?
No, it is not a declaration of war. It's an assertion of their independence, or as an assertion, a self-determination that they don't want to belong to the nation again. It's something written in their constitution, self-determination. At some point, South Carolina itself seceded from this union. They came back again into this union. So it is not something that, it's written in gold or in stone, that you may not at some point, if you feel oppressed, you cannot leave the union. There is nothing in the Constitution that tells you that you cannot leave the union. There is nothing written in the United States Constitution, even plus it's the Bill of Rights and all the amendments. There is nothing written like that. It is that there is an imperfect union. They try to perfect it every day, and that's it. So if you try to equate that particular point with the Southern Cameroons and the Republic of Cameroon, those are two different things. We can debate that part, but that if a state decides to assert its right to belong or not to belong in that union, it's something that is constitutionally driven, and you can debate it in the courts in a civil platform and without recourse to war. I don't think that's what ensues here in the United States.
Okay, we will bring up Dr. Elvis Mboge to explain to us what gives him that, I don't want to use the word audacity, because he has the right to feel the way he feels, or, to comment how he wants, however he wants, on his party chairman, who's the president of the Republic of Cameroon. He has that right. We respect it here. But at least he needs to elucidate and clarify the point, what he means by Paul Biya is God-given gift, God's gift to Cameroon. Ladies and gentlemen, here is Dr. Elvis Mboge once more on the platform. Dr. Elvis Mboge, when you said Paul Biya, President Biya, is a gift to Cameroon, I could feel the lawyer gasping for breath. How do you explain that in terms of what is he?
It's easy to, to sit from outside and criticize. Those building always find challenges building, because when they make mistakes, those watching will, pinpoint these mistakes. And that is how the world works. And President Paul Biya is a builder. And the way he works is he works to make sure that the country he inherited as a president progresses. And he has managed to sell a vision that no other Cameroonian has sold for Cameroonians. So if what I'm saying is as simple as we have a leader who has given the nation a vision that everybody believes in. And this leader believes in unity and believes in moving the country together, making sure unity is paramount, and making sure republicanism, republic values, where he works for the good of all, is maintained at all times, rather than for the good of a few. When you see Cameroonians believing in Paul Biya till date, it's because we have had no other leader in Cameroon who believes in the whole of Cameroon as he does. The few opposition leaders that we have just concentrate on where they represent, where they come from, the regions they come from, the tribes. And you tell me Cameroonians are dumb? No. We know who has the interest of the country at heart. We know who is thinking national. And that is why Cameroonians have not really bothered to look elsewhere. We have had opposition leaders who have come up with ideas. We have a democracy in Cameroon. We have a tolerant democracy in Cameroon. We have people who have come up, but you realize that their services and their loyalty is for their own people. And that is where it is difficult for the critics to really pinpoint and really criticize the person who is doing the job for all. And that is why President Biya has survived till date and has that confidence that the Cameroonian people have bestowed on him. There is just a lot that I can stipulate here
And I get to, we'll come to that because we'll ask you to provide evidence. I'm going to put you on the screen now with the lawyer to prosecute. You are on the defense, apparently. If you want to ask him questions, challenge his points of view, we'll keep this very, very civil as we started. So, Barrister Aneneba Akufo, you are going to ask Dr. Elvis Mboge the first question, and please keep your questions and answers short.
Well, it's not really a direct question to the doctor. I think we are all canaries from coming out from the coal mine, you know. But whatever took us from that coal mine, we are giving totally two different perspectives of what we came out from. So he is a politician. I am somebody. I discuss fact-based evidence in order to come out to a solution. If you brought somebody here from the other party, the SDF or the MRC, the three of them, they will speak something totally, you know, three different things. They praise their leader and say they are almighty, they are Hitler. I mean, they are, you know, there's nothing best than Hitler. Of course, you know, Hitler was democratically elected in Germany. You saw the carnage he brought in Germany. And before I even asked the doctor a question, he said something about the CPDM, that the CPDM, it came with a mission. Paul Biya came with a mission. Yes, he came with a mission, and that's the mission to destroy Cameroon. That mission is not to fix Cameroon. Let me tell you how the CPDM came out, because the doctor may not really know where the origins of that particular name, CPDM, Rassemblement Démocratique du Peuple Cameroun, came from. I'm sure he does not know. If he knows, that's fine. But let me explain to our audience how Paul Biya came to that name. In 1966, there was a culmination of different political parties in Cameroon, from Ahijos, UC, and all the other ones to the CNU. That was the party. And that was the party after independence that ruled Cameroon and governed Cameroon as a single party. And of course, the first prime minister of Cameroon, André Biya, was against a single party rule. And he was the first political prisoner in Cameroon by Ahijo. So when Mr. Biya came to power through a soft coup d'etat staged by the French, which was exactly the same that they staged to get Ahijo into power, you know, he came up and decided at some point to change the name of CNU to Rassemblement Démocratique du Peuple Cameroun. So, doctor, let me tell you, post Second World War, Houphouët-Boigny of the late Houphouët-Boigny of Ivory Coast, he was like, you know, there was a French, sort of a pseudo French parliament existing that was grooming Africans, you know, to lead the post-colonial Africa. There was an organization called Rassemblement Démocratique du Peuple Africain. Houphouët-Boigny, the late Houphouët-Boigny, he was the champion of that. And of course, France-Afrique, which came up in the late 50s, it was still Houphouët-Boigny, one of the best people of the French Republic, who coined France-Afrique also. So when your president came up, when President Paul Biya came up to power, he decided to change that name CNU to Rassemblement Démocratique du Peuple Cameroun, trying to mimic exactly what Houphouët-Boigny had done in order to win favors with the French. So if you tell me that he came with a mission, yes, he came with a mission not to work for Cameroonians, but a mission to destroy Cameroonians and weave Cameroonian to the benefit of the West. And that's what he's done, and that's what he's done for 40 years. And my question to you is does Cameroon have any sovereignty?
Does Cameroon have any sovereignty? Barrister, yes. Thank you so much for your articulation. Thank you so much for your time, really, because you care for Cameroon. If not, you'll not be here. But we are on opposite views now. First of all, I want to say President Paul Biya came to power on a very genuine basis, you know, and he was appointed because he was the best to lead Cameroon. The administration, his colleagues, his boss, late President Ahijo, saw this young man who is truthful, who is charismatic, who is patriotic, whose first description is that of integrity. And President Paul Biya was appointed as the next head of state. There was no coup whatsoever. I bet you, even the biggest dictator in the world cannot last in power based on my politics and my political science knowledge. Even the greatest dictator cannot last in power for a day if they do not ascend power through a befitting and legal and supportive means. You know this better. However, let me go back to your question. We are a sovereign state. We had our independence from the French. Like any other African country, we are not different from any other African country during the 1960s. We did fight for our independence in a certain way, and we got it. We were given a baby state, a prototype of the state of our colonizer. This state is like somebody giving you a piece of paper that this is your foundation, and you need to begin building. What do you expect from young people like the Daijos, the Biyas at the time to do? They had to work. And these were the best among the best of the people we had who could take these young nations forward. So if you're demanding our sovereignty, the question is like a little bit of insulting, given the people who have died, the people who have sacrificed, the people who have worked hard for that flag, for that nation to be existing today. It is not
the topic this evening is given the war.
It is something that we all will continue celebrating and dying for, that sovereignty.
The question I'm asking both of you is, we have a war going on, whether it's the Ambazonia folks who declared the war or it's Mr. Biya who declared the war. There's a lot of finger pointing. Hold on, sir. Regardless of who started the war, there is war. And so many people are suffering in cities, towns across Nigeria, and even within. The question is Mr. Biya part of the problem or part of the solution? I'm going to ask you that question first, and the barrister will respond. Dr. Elvis Morgan, Biya part of the problem or part of the solution?
Biya has already been the solution. Biya you can never put Biya as part of the problem. Biya is already part of the solution that Cameroon needs. And he's already given the solution of the so-called Anglophone crisis. He's already identified and given the solutions for this crisis to be resolved. Now, if you find persistence of things not moving the way they're supposed to move, it's because the separatists, the groups trying to break away are hardliners. They do not really even want to engage or follow the tune of what the government and the state is doing to resolve the matter. And there is no problem that can be resolved by fighting, that. And Biya, from the first day, has always been who he is. I believe that's why I always said God actually gave Biya to us. If it were maybe a different president we had in Cameroon, we will not be saying all this, because Biya's patience is a patient mind you will never ever find in the world as a leader. He's so patient to a fault, because he is like a father of a nation who cares for everyone, including people committing treasonous activities like the separatist fighters bearing arms against the state.
Barrister Akufo, how do you respond to what Dr. Elvis Morgan has just said?
Thank you so much, Mr. Chamukong. I think if we've attained a certain level of political or intellectual maturity, I think we speak at a certain level of, which can evoke a certain sense of decency in people in the way they articulate when it comes to society. I think what has failed Africa and what continues to fail Africa is that our intellectuals, some of our leaders and some of our intellectuals, they've gone through the process of acquiring knowledge, but rather to help to use this knowledge to benefit its people. They take the softer side in order to side with terror or with oppression in order to get a more palatable way into society. I think I asked the professor whether Cameroon has any sovereignty left in itself. I mean, he could not really answer that question. And of course, sovereignty, it is the supreme power of the state and the citizens, which the state subjects to its citizens and how they can rule and govern themselves. Legally, Cameroon has lost its sovereignty. Politically, they've lost sovereignty. Economically, they've lost it. Internally, they've lost it. Externally, they've lost it. We can debate all those four forms of sovereignty. Cameroon has lost them all through. So if you're telling me that Mr. Biya is the hope for tomorrow, then I'm asking you, what hope do you, Professor, have for Cameroon by itself? Are you going to peddle the same policies that Mr. Biya has peddled and that has led to war? Let me explain one thing to you and to our audience. There are three forces that have really dawned onto our lives, which it's all man created since 1945. We had the atomic bomb. It was man created, which could annihilate the entire planet at the whim, and everybody would die. Then, of course, we have what is called neoliberalism. Neoliberalism, which is something that's, unfettered capitalism, which is something quite different from what Maynard Keynes was, elucidating back in the late 40s. This neoliberalism has brought us to what is called democracy incorporated, grooming people like Mr. Biya in power, where what they do is they use corporations and, different machinations of power to stay and oppress on their people. This has had nothing to do with leadership. He leads for the West, and that's what he's done for the last 40 years. So if you tell me that he is God, he is no God for Cameroon, and he's never been, he will never lead Cameroon to something positive than what he's doing today. And of course, the other part, again, it's climate change that's coming up. It's something that's going to annihilate the entire planet. So if we sit there as young people, you are not me, those of us who are privileged to have acquired knowledge, but rather than peddle something that's positive, you're trying to inculcate into your people ideas of people that have lived or they have moved their societies back hundreds of years backward. Then you tell me that a positive looking society, then I don't see that as true, Mr. Professor.
You are watching Voices of Africa. Dr. Mbwage is back online. He's connecting live from the United Kingdom. My name is Divine Chamukong, and I'm anchoring this broadcast from Washington, D.C. metropolitan area. At some point, I'm going to open the phone lines, but I require that you can disagree with any of the guests on the platform, but I require civility. If somebody calls and is going to be disrespectful of the end of my guest on the platform, the panelist, I'm going to cut the person off or simply mute the person's voice. I have those capabilities here. I'm going to bring up Dr. Mbwage to respond to some of the statements you have made. Dr. Mbwage, you've listened to Barrister Akufo prosecute the case against Mr. Biya. What's your evidence when you keep saying that the president that Cameroonians are lucky to have Mr. Biya as president for 40 years? There's a crisis going on, there's war, people are poor, there's inflation, roads, you know the roads, the way they look like, 5 kilometers outside Yaoundé or even within Yaoundé. What evidence do you have, irrefutable evidence do you have that Mr. Biya is God-given to Cameroon, sir?
Thank you. Thank you. I thank the barrister for coming out firm against Mr. Biya's record. But he's just one man. He's just one man against 1,025 million Cameroonians who believe in Mr. Biya. Cameroon is a democratic nation, and Mr. Biya has built a formidable democracy where everybody has some form of rights that we never thought we will have. And that alone is one good evidence. We are here talking about our politics and the challenges our country is facing. And we are free. And we are living in a democracy that has never been seen in Africa before. And thanks to President Paul Biya, Cameroonians know this. This man has been voted in on elections back to back by his people. He did not get there through the barrel of a gun, where we're saying that he got there and he's remaining there. No, it is the Cameroonians that have arrested President Paul Biya to be their leader. I just want to bring back that point to my able big brother, the barrister. Cameroon is a democracy, and we are enjoying it, and it is the people who have put President Paul Biya in charge. President Paul Biya never put himself in charge. The French or the colonizers that you have cited are just our international partners. Like any other sovereign country will have partners. And of course, like previous colonizers and everything, we will have deals with them, which is normal. Neocolonialism is everywhere in Africa. So we cannot pin that on President Paul Biya or him being used by the French. Nothing like that. It is the Cameroonians who are behind President Paul Biya's success because they believe in the vision he has for Cameroon. President Paul Biya is a tactful, experienced, very intelligent, very kind, and very forgiving human being. And I believe Cameroonians who have given him this mandate know exactly what he's made of. We are just individuals here exchanging views. We cannot say the whole country is dumb. It means that one person is clever than the whole country, where a universal suffrage choose a democratic elected president. That is uncalled for. We
Barrister,
cannot.
I'd like to respond to Dr. Mbwage now.
So, yes, Doctor, thank you so much for your passion for your leader, Mr. Biya Paul, who has been the president of Cameroon for almost half a century, most of our lives, and, to bring you back again to what Mr. Chamukong had this program for is whether Mr. Biya is fit to lead Cameroon again. And I told you we've lost sovereignty. How do you lose sovereignty? Let's take the legal part of it. If you look at Article 45, I beg your pardon, of your constitution, the Constitution of Cameroon, it tells you that if there is any treaty signed between Cameroon and that foreign partner, the terms of that treaty override the Cameroonian law. So if you, from your name, I'm pretty sure you are from a particular, the southern part of Cameroon, the southern Cameroons, that's where you're from. I mean, no matter where you're from, any part of Cameroon, let's say you get up one day, you go to your local council where you elected your officials. This is how society is run, Mr. Mbwage, not the way politicians want it. You go to your local council, you want to get a license. You're going to get a license to operate a business. They tell you that, okay, that license, you can no longer get it at the level of the council because the law that binds you is no longer the local council law that the councilmen that you guys elected, you wrote within your council jurisdiction. Those laws no longer govern. It is a law written by somebody in Paris or somebody within another African state. I think you, as a political philosopher, I don't think you will like it that way, that you've lost sovereignty. And that's what has happened with Cameroon, because this is a pass-through. You cannot let treaties signed by foreigners override your national constitution, because in a very strong society, the biggest law, your most important law, is your constitution. That's where you go to in terms of recourse. You don't go to a foreign power to reflect on what they wrote. You go to your constitution. But if you give it if you tell them to override your national laws, is that not a loss of sovereignty, Doctor?
Barrister, I'm going to ask you a question before Dr. Mboge responds.
Yes.
Barrister, there's a war raging. I come back to that war in Anglophone Cameroon. People like Dr. Mboge are going to argue that Paul Biya convened the Grand National Dialogue. How is it not a way to resolve the problem? At least people are talking.
Again, Mr. Chamukong, I think we have to be honest with ourselves. There was a Grand National Dialogue. We all followed what that dialogue was. You understand. And the thing is, what triggered this war in the Cameroon and the southern Cameroons? What was the reason? Why did these people start fighting? What was the basis? I think we've never got to that particular point. You cannot sit two people who came into a union as co-partners. You wake up one day and you decide to tell the other person that I will grant you a special status. That for me, it's a travesty. It's a hogwash. Reasonable people should not sit down thinking things like that. You are two equal partners. You came into a union. We can debate the terms and everything about that particular union, but that's how it happened. You wake up one day, you say you want to grant me a special status. Who gave you that authority? And let me tell you, whatever you call that special status, let me tell you, there is an article of your constitution. I will give it to you. Article 60 of your constitution. The president can get up one day and just dissolve that thing you call regional councils that the special status created. You understand? So what tells you that this man is not an autocrat and this man will going to lead Cameroon into the future?
Can I come in, Barrister?
Oh, yes, you can go ahead. Oh, yes, go ahead.
Yes. This idea where we make comparative analysis and we destroy our own system is a very, very disturbing one. Barrister, some of you who have been in the diaspora and studied for so long and studied for long, you find it so difficult when things are really, really not smooth. I get your point on that, and I am not disagreeing that we don't have challenges. Please, I'm not. We have challenges, but we have to work towards that in nation building, and that's the same thing. Even people who live in the West, with the Western democracies that have been for hundreds of years, thousands of years, they still face similar challenges and sites that you are stipulating. So I'm going back to our system in Cameroon. We should not expect Cameroon to be as smooth as the United States system that you are used to. I just want to say that we are just a baby nation. We're just barely 60 years old, if not even. The Americans, where you have studied and where you know the system and how things work, how things have to work, the balances of power and everything, have been there for hundreds of years with good experience under democratic norms. And I'm telling you that if we have a Democrat in our own level today, like in a person of President Paul Biya, that's why I say he's a God gift to our country, because he is actually building. Paul Biya has not refused these challenges. He is the one who is even giving us the solution on these challenges. We do not see any better person who will do it. Otherwise, we would have had that person.
Let me ask you a question, and then Barrister will respond.
If we are having issues today, it's because there are a minor group of maybe citizens, I would call, who think they can overhaul the system by imposing ideas that the majority do not buy. And it's very wrong. When we tackle politics that way, we have evolved and we have a constitution, and that constitution is what binds us as Cameroonians, regardless whether we're first Francophones or so-called Anglophones or whatever. We have a united and indivisible country today. we can manage and make things work if we really mean it. And President Paul Biya has given us that opportunity. He's listened, he's been patient, he's given us the opportunity of the Grand National Dialogue, the Major National Dialogue, where all stakeholders have been involved in creating recommendations that will take our nation forward. It is not himself nor any other person. He appointed the chairperson, the honorable chief, the prime minister, John Gute, Dr. John Gute,
let me ask you
to be
a
the
question.
chairperson who has actually, he comes from Southern Cameroon like you and me, but he has made sure the implementation of all the recommendations are going on. Is that not the solution? Is that not the way forward? Where do we have to come out with any other blame when the nation has actually sat down to actually diagnose its problems, bring up solutions, recommend this implemented, and it's being done, and we say things are not moving forward as they're supposed to be. And there is no
hold your thought there, Dr. Mboge. A lot of people have asked that why or how President Biya is able to fly to Washington, D.C. to attend a summit, and something is going on as important to national life as the Grand National Dialogue, and it does not occur to him to go there and see what's happening. What's your response, sir?
President Paul Biya has been a very, I know he's a father to Cameroonians. There's no doubt about that. And for him to be involved, you will find people criticizing him for, drawing and, implementing his wishes. I believe that he gave the opportunity for the nation to sit down and decide the way forward. And I believe if the nation sits down and decides the way forward, it will satisfy the nation rather than him being there and giving his directives.
I get your question.
That is the Democrat that you have in President Paul Biya.
I get your answer. Let me go over to the barrister. I'm going to ask you a question. Dr. Mboge says it's unfair for you to compare the United States, which has been in democracy for over 300 years. That's a fact. They've had to work at perfecting it, and it's still not perfect. How do you, a country 300 years old to a country 600 years old, and think they should work? They should operate the same way?
Absolutely. I never made that comparison between the Cameroons and the United States. I would never do that. I mean, Cameroon is a very young nation. United States, they've been there for a very long time. We try to, a harmful truth is better than a useful lie. And what the professor doesn't want is, the real truth, because he does not want it that way. So that Cameroon has been existing for 60 years and they are perfecting towards a union. They're going through a civil war at this particular moment. What triggered that civil war? He would not tell you exactly what triggered that civil war. If you're leading a nation towards tomorrow and you end up in a situation where there is a war, you should find a solution to that war. That's what Mr. Biya is not able to do. You ask him whether, if he could fly from, to attend the Africa summit here in the United States, during the Grand National Dialogue, why wasn't he there? He's never been to the southwest or the northwest region of the southern Cameroon. He's never been there. I don't think he lacks the means to go there. It is just the lack of empathy. He does not care about that part of Cameroon. All Mr. Biya cares is his foreign partners and the few people, his tribal colleagues that surround him at that palace. There is nothing more beyond that point. So, and unfortunately, foreigners really write our history better than us. If the professor is telling me that you've lived outside for a long time, you see life differently, which at some point it's a blessing. It's an advantage that you see life differently. You want to inculcate that into your people. When Joseph Conrad visited Africa at a very young age, when he came back, he thought that Africa was the antithesis of civilization, but he saw the treatment of Africans by Europeans, it was appalling. When André Gide, a Frenchman, came to the Congo, went back, wrote the book Voyage au Congo, he saw the way the Frenchman treated the Africans. It was appalling. But it's very unfortunate that our own intellectuals, they don't see this nonchalant behavior by our own leaders. They drum them up to the heartbeat of every drum out there and think that they are the best, but they are leading the country. Yes, it's 60 years. What has Mr. Biya done that it's moving this country? Look at the Human Development Index, the HDI. That's what measures. Let's look at the development in Cameroon. You look at the HDI, the Human Development Index. You look at the mortality rate. You look at the level of literacy. You look at the gross national income of the country. That's not what, in the 80s, the lost continent of the African nation, the lost continent of Africa, which was the 80s, you know, when the prices of commodities, especially oil, went down, Cameroon was nowhere to be found. Then in the early 90s, you had another opportunity where Cameroon or most African countries could develop. What happened? There were no reserves because this particular government had told Cameroonians that cash crops like coffee, it's no longer something of value. Forget cultivating those cash crops. I don't know if the doctor drinks coffee. I do drink coffee, and I drink it almost every day. It's a good beverage. That's something that sells in the West. Why did Mr. Biya tell people or his government not to cultivate coffee? That's development. We've not had it. If you look at the HDI for Cameroon, because before 1990, we used the gross domestic product to measure the level of development. But after 1990, we are using the Human Development Index. For that of Cameroon, Cameroon has always lagged between 150 going up to 175 of the nations of the world. Cameroon has never gone beyond that point. So where is the development that you keep drumming that your president has brought to Cameroon?
I'm going to give Dr. Mbwoge an opportunity to answer. But before you answer, Dr. Mbwoge, I have a question for you. I'm going to open the lines shortly for people to dial in their questions and challenge your point of view of support. Dr. Mbwoge, you were old enough in 1982 when Ahidjo handed power to Biya. Seeing the nation the way it is today, would you say Cameroon or Cameroonians are better off today than they were before 1982, sir?
Thank you for this question, Mr. Nchamakong. I will say Cameroon has been making steady progress. People are misunderstanding the concept of development. And I think when you talk of development, everybody's thinking, okay, we have to have flyovers, skyscrapers, we have to have multi-story buildings all over, we have to build hospitals everywhere at once and everything. Yes, that is development, physical development. We can see that. We know that it is good to be seen, but that is not all. That's not what builds a nation. A nation has a lot of other dimensions of building a nation. And President Paul Biya has actually focused on preserving the sovereignty, the unity of our nation, and the peace and security of our nation so that we are not sold out as other African nations. That is where people fail to understand when they are assessing President Paul Biya's development. President Paul Biya is the only president in Africa who has managed to preserve our national resources without any compromises. You hear stories in other nations where even national resources have been taken over by other national countries, other national governments and everything. You will not hear that in Cameroon, thanks to President Paul Biya being very vigilant, careful, and making sure that he is leaving Cameroon intact as he met Cameroon. Now, when we talk of poverty index and everything, I believe Cameroonians are well off and better off than they were yesteryears when Biya took over, because our country has a lot of development geared towards ourselves as citizens. Human development is too much. That's what people don't measure. People only count on things like roads and everything. And by the way, on that side too, there has been a lot of progress. I don't know how you measure this, but however, I know it may not be the way everybody expects. A country has, it has challenges, and these challenges are what we as normal citizens and critics will find as if there is nothing being done. Meanwhile, an oversight is neglected of what has been achieved so
Your
far.
point has been taken. We'll take a little break. When we come back, Barrister Mboge will respond. Barrister Akufo will respond to the political scientist. The number will be 240-603-7367. 240-603-7367. You are watching Voices of Africa, and I am the anchor, broadcast anchor, Divine Chamakong. Let's have an interlude, just an interlude of music, and then we will continue the show. You are watching Voices of Africa on Chat Night Africa. My name is Divine Chamakong.
We love Chat Night Africa. Keep watching Chat Night Africa.
Ladies and gentlemen, the phone lines are now open. I told you that we will be opening the phone lines so that you can call and challenge the guest. We require that you be respectful of our guest, or we cut your phone line. We cut off your phone call to the program. You can text your question. The number is 240-603-7367. 240-603-7367. While waiting for your phone call, there's somebody on the line. Hello? Yes, please turn off your listening device and simply talk to me like you talk on the phone line, on the phone call. Hello?
Hello.
Yes, please.
Hello.
Yes, I'm listening to you.
Yes, I greet everyone on the panel.
Just hold it there, Barrister. Are you getting the phone call in your earpiece? Yes, go ahead, sir. Yes, ask your question.
Yes, my first question is, given the problem that is happening in Cameroon right now, do you guys think that a way forward is possible for more development to come to Cameroon, given that the Amber Boys are doing what they're doing and the country is at war? Point number two, the last speaker who was online before you went on the music interlude, he was talking about development coming with challenges. I want him to understand, I don't know whether it's a question, but I would like him to throw more light to what I'm saying right now. Like, do you think that economic challenges is an excuse for slow development growth? And if you think so, why? And why do you think that good roads, reliable health system, uninterrupted power supply to the population are not essential ingredients to economic development? I think it was a little disingenuous on your side because, well, that we live in the Western world. When you have all these things around, people can go about their daily lives without a lot of problems. But you seem to be giving an excuse to say, oh, the development has other ramifications and other areas. You seem to be playing down electricity, good roads, and these are things that we don't have over there. It's there, but it's so bad, and you know that. So why are you pretending as if you don't know? Please answer.
No, let me answer that question, Boris.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for calling.
Let me answer that question, Mr. Divine, because he made that point.
Let me give Dr. Mboge first the chance to respond to the caller. Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank the caller so much. I think he's right to say we've lived in the West, and is that the same that we find back home, and is that how we want? I will tell you this. I have been in the diaspora for almost 20 years before starting to engage back home. And to be honest, as a human being, I know it is not easy to govern and build. And I know with the little I have learned how much challenges we have in our African setup. And you rightly said the economic crisis, and the economic crisis had hit Africa double than we even have in the West here. But the difference I could say is this: we are living in a primitive, economic environment that has a lot of, challenges to implement certain economic policies for the regime to acquire overnight, as we expect, as it is done in the West. So for me, the little that has been done, I will appreciate that, and I will encourage. That's why I am, as part of a national builder, I am being optimistic that we are getting there based on the vision that we have of nation building that the president has for Cameroon. The Vision 2035 is actually being, it is something as never seen before. Cameroon is being built as we speak. I've never seen this. There has been a lot of, yes, we never had roads, but now roads are being built. You hear public works minister announcing the building of roads. You could see what's going on. Even in some challenging areas, the government has done everything to make sure that roads are being built. We have to appreciate this. But we will not have this overnight type of building room in Cameroon, nor anywhere else in Africa. I just want you to understand that.
Okay, your point gotten. Barrister, you want to make a comment to respond or ask Dr. Mboge a question?
Yeah, I think he's always been, slipping off the questions you ask him about development in Cameroon. And again, when I talked about the HDI, which is something done by the United Nations Development Program, that's where we get these statistics. It measures, your level of development based on, every aspect of life, the quality of health. It is not just the length of your life, your quality of health, which goes to the medicines, the hospitals, the good roads, the cars, or the, what institutions your society has built. That's what gets to the Human Development Index. So if the professor is saying that things like roads and hospitals do not really matter, then I think that's disingenuous, because if you spend 20 years in the United States, in the diaspora, and you went back home to try to rebuild the society, I think you have to come from the premise of accepting the truth. I told you, a harmful truth is better than a useful lie. We cannot just keep peddling the same stuff, thinking that the Almighty God, which you've adorned on your leader, is going to bring Cameroon to the next tomorrow. He's leading Cameroon into a graveyard. They ask you again about where, in 1984, when he took over power in Cameroon, where is Cameroon today? If you don't know, let me tell you, in the early 80s till today, there was a tea estate in the northwest, in the northern part of Cameroon. Is the new tea estate. It's no longer there. It might be privatized today. It might be existing in private hands. That was a solid employer. If you look at Santa, there was a Santa coffee estate. You go to your shelves, you could buy coffee that was made local. It was made locally within your region. If you look at the Produce Marketing Board, that's development. If you crush down all these institutions, Professor, if you bring down all these institutions, does that not bring down the standard of living of your people? Does that not crumble the level of employment inside that particular society? Does that not lead to frustration? So hold on. Does that not lead to frustration? Does that not lead to people taking arms against the government or fighting for their survival in a situation where you chop off their means of living? That's what your government has done all through the years. If we see a situation where a government is struggling to successfully build on a pedestal that would lead to tomorrow, we would applaud it. But that's not what your government has done. I told you about the CPDM, why he reverted to the West to change the name of the party. I don't know if you answered that question or you have an answer to that. That is where we lost sovereignty. We've lost it. Mr. Biya cannot lead Cameroon because Cameroon is under the paymaster. Hold on, Professor. Another part that I want to bring over to you also. If you look at CEMAC, which is the monetary union within the Central African region, which Cameroon is part of it also. Do you know that the laws of CEMAC override the constitution of your country? Look, I don't really understand what nation you're trying to build for tomorrow if you cannot run that country based on the legal system that you vote in your parliament. Is that a country for tomorrow? Hold on, Professor. If you look at the OHADA also, that's another cooperative agreement between Cameroon. That's a treaty signed between Cameroon and other nations. Do you know that those treaties, CEMAC and the OHADA, if there is a conflict between the laws of your state and the laws of this foreign state, the laws have been debated in a foreign parliament. The laws of those foreign parliaments, they operate within your state with impunity. So somebody
Barrister,
who
I'm going to
comes
give him
from
time to respond
yes,
to you.
do you
So please
no,
summarize.
no, because he doesn't answer these questions. He goes around
No,
just
but
you know, you don't
barrister,
answer the
we
questions I
Okay,
cannot,
ask
give him
you
a
you.
chance to
cannot be,
respond. Dr. Mbogo,
barrister,
yes, respond to this, please.
I get you, but you cannot be producing micro complaints on the aspect of national development. You cannot be citing small, industries being closed, small companies being closed, as if the president or the regime closed them down as a failure to the regime, when we know the economic crisis our country has overcome over the years. You cannot be citing, this, in short, these micro stuffs that you are citing, they are there. These are the challenges. But we are looking at the bigger picture, the macro, not the micro. And if you say President Paul Biya is not focusing on the macro and the future of our nation, then I will say, yeah, you're talking something. You talk of CEMAC. We African nations are trying to integrate regionally to build our regions together so that we can fight common challenges. It is but normal that we need to surrender a certain amount of, authority in these regional organizations so that we survive as a region and as a continent. It is but normal. It is not like stealing away our sovereignty. It is normal. You talk of our economy not being bailed, but our economy is actually being bailed with good financing and subsidies from the regime, regardless of the economic crisis we are facing. Look at, I listened to President Paul Biya's speech the other day, and he is subsidizing 700 billion, on petroleum. If we had to spend on petroleum without him intervening on this, we will be in a catastrophe. 75 billion on domestic gas, things like that. This is what this man is doing that you cannot see and measure. I mean, I'm telling you this.
Yeah, your point taken. Now, the last part of this broadcast will focus on what's the path forward. Can President Paul Biya still be relied upon to resolve the Anglophone problems, the war that's going on in Anglophone Cameroon?
Yes.
Barrister, I'm coming to you, and I'm going to open the phone lines when both of you talk. Barrister Akufo, from your assessment of President Paul Biya, is he the one that can be relied upon to resolve the problem?
Absolutely no, because the professor said it from his opening monologue that Mr. Biya had a mission in Cameroon, and that mission was to lead Cameroon for the West, groom Cameroon for the West, and that's what he's done for the past 40 years. So if you're asking me whether he can actually save the Anglophone problem, he cannot, because he told you guys that the reason why these people came into a union with the other part of Cameroon, the French-speaking Cameroon, was to gradually assimilate them into a French union. That's what it is. They've tried to soft diplomacy. It does not work. They tried to books like Pierre et Sédou, professor. These are simple things. It did not work. And they got to a point, hold on, sir, and they got to a point where they decide to bring war in order to get these people, a conquered people, in such a way that, because there is a communique that had been circulating in the early 60s, where they said it, the French attaché in Biya said it. We have to do everything within our powers to get these people as a union or inside the French community. That's what has been the mission all through. So sending your magistrates who speak French into English courts in the Western Cameroons triggered these things, and it has ballooned into what it is today. So that Mr. Biya would do anything different, that has always been his mission, to assimilate, absorb you guys. And let me tell you one thing, Professor, before we get off. If you continue with this, at some point in the future of Cameroon, I bet you would go to Cameroon, you would not be able to speak English, because English would no longer be the official language of your country. Again, it would be French, because your money itself right there is nothing there. It is French, and everything will be in French. And the English that you and I speak will no longer be spoken in Cameroon.
Dr. Mbogo, respond.
I think the barrister is having some points, but most of these points already have solutions. That's fortunately, they already have solutions. He's talking about our money. Our money in CEMAC, we actually have English and English inserted into our current currency at the moment. And that is grace to the fact that we are English speakers in Cameroon. The barrister, there is a lot that maybe you need to, follow up with what we have already achieved on the recommendations given under the auspices of the Grand National Dialogue, the major dialogue that the president, the head of state, President Paul Biya, after listening to the Anglophones and everyone in the national territory, that they should come up with solutions. Most of these things you've pinpointed, the OHADA law has already been resolved. I mean, we have already had that in the text, everything.
Dr.
We now have magistrates that we were talking about, the French-speaking magistrates and everything, transferred back to where they can actually exercise their French law, and we have English magistrates in the English courts. We have a common law bench. We have all this based on the Grand National Dialogue recommendations, all this already implemented. We have bilingual teachers sent into Anglo schools, English-speaking schools, to climb up the number of the teachers that we lacked. We have the common law bench fully functioning with English magistrates there. We have the ENAM being created, the law creating the common law section of the ENAM. We have the decentralization law, which is presently the political dispensation in Cameroon as we speak, being implemented, where our regional councils have been formed. Regional councils, assemblies have been formed, where they've created a national school to train those administrators, NASLA. All this thanks to the willingness and the bravery and the courage that President Paul Biya has endured has emphasized that we get these solutions sorted. There were a lot of things that caused this crisis, the demands initially from the teachers and lawyers. When you look at the demands, what President Paul Biya has given, it is way more, far double beyond what the people demanded. I'm telling you this, barrister. I believe that you really need to be given a pamphlet on the recommendations that have already been implemented and the laws that are still going through Parliament now to be implemented. This is
Let
not
me ask you a question,
what
Dr.
President Paul Biya wants of us. This is what the nation wants, and this is what the nation is implementing through the Parliament. And the decentralization law that we are talking about is actually even now being implemented more than it was demanded. And our special status that you are talking about is the special status that President Paul Biya recognizes that we have a heritage, we have a language, we are a people, we are a nation with other ways. Therefore, we can now promote this culture within our own remit through regionalism. So I don't understand what again is the problem.
Okay, this is the problem, sir. Let me ask you a question. And anybody now can dial the number 240-603-7367. 240-603-7367. Dr. Mbwage, it's about 3 years, a little over 3 years since the Grand National Debate and all the recommendations, some of which you say have been implemented. Why is the war still going on if the president is responding to what the people were demanding? Or why they took up guns in the first place? Why are they not putting down their guns?
On a status point of view, it is very normal for a nation to have disgruntled people. And if a nation has disgruntled people, like Cameroon has, the best way is to, to dialogue. And we thank God, President Paul Biya has given us that major national dialogue. If you see people having guns today, these are the hardliners, the minority of the people requesting themselves to be out of Cameroon, who persist, who do not want to be part of the national dialogue of taking our country forward. Therefore, we cannot blame the state or President Paul Biya for people still having guns. He has done everything. Look at the DDR centers that he has created. The president is ready, and is ready till this date as we speak, to ensure that amnesty is granted to any fighter who puts down the gun. And our DDR centers are being flooded every day because the message is going through. People are listening. The fight is no longer there. If Mr. Chambokon, if you follow up the news as of now, we have just, you know, a little bit of instability compared to 3, 4, 5 years back. That means that people are listening. People have heard the clarion call that they should drop and come together. The recommendations to build the nations are being implemented. The current dispensation, which is that of regionalism, is being implemented. That will resolve our problems. The voice is being heard, and you could find that these separatists who are armed they're listening, because the program, like the radicalization program, disarmament deradicalization program, is actually a success. These centers are being flooded with ex-fighters who have given up and are ready to be re-radicalized, get back into society, and get the opportunities that the nation is offering them. This is if President Paul Biya wasn't there and was not willing to be that solution, we will not be at this space talking now. We'll be talking something else. We thank God he is there.
To you.
We thank God he's giving that opportunity to the nation, and we thank God the nation has accepted, and the implementations are healing the nation, and together the nation is growing.
What do you dispute Barrister Akufo in what he said? He seems to be lining up the things that President Biya has done. From the outset, the people took up guns because there were lots of Francophone, French-speaking teachers teaching Anglophone children in language they don't understand. There was a problem in the courts. Dr. Mbwage appears to be giving evidence that these problems Biya has responded to. Why is still wrong, and why are you right in what you're going to say now?
Yes, I don't think, yes, saying that Mr. Biya has done certain things, that is true. Implementing these things also, that's another truth. Whether these things actually are far-reaching, that's something that we don't know. Mr. Biya, I mean, if you've listened to the history of Cameroon, or if you've watched Cameroon in its developmental paradigm, when things happen, all they do is they create commissions, they create all these institutions, pseudo, apparatchiks that empower them, give them money, flood them with cash and opportunity to do stuff. Within 1, 2, 3 years, it dies down and you don't get anything. There is no solution. That's what they've been doing, that they're trying to create all these commissions and all that stuff. If you still go to Bamenda, if you still go there, there are still teachers teaching in pidgin English, sir. I don't know where you're talking about all this other stuff. Again, you can create your regional councils. You can create all those decentralization committees and all that stuff. You can create them. But what gives them the power for them to work? Again, as I told you, the regional councils that your president creates, he has the power tomorrow. And who is the supervisory authority over those regional councils? It is not the person that's elected to that head. It is the governor of the state. It is the governor of the state. If you did not know that, it is there. And if tomorrow, at his whim, Mr. Biya gets up, because your constitution says it, you can dissolve the regional council for any reason that he wants. There are 3 reasons. If they do something that's anti the state, but there is another one, which he says, the law, by anything that they decide by the law to dissolve the regional council. So these are just cosmetic solutions that your president is putting out there, you know, to please foreign donors so that they can still come back again and invest in Cameroon. That's what he's doing.
Kufo,
Not that he's doing something that can last for tomorrow.
This war? What would it take to stop this war?
To stop this war, I think the professor knows it. We have to sit back, find the root causes, and get the lasting solutions. If you look at these two countries, these two dispensations, these two states, they came in there as two separate people. You know, they came in there with their own unique identities. At some point, one was foisted on the other, one was dissolved, and we inculcated all two into one. At some point, it started not to work. The only way to come back again is to sit with the same people again. Come back and sit with them, not with your foreign partners, because that's what triggered all this stuff. That's what they told you to do in the 1972 referendum, to do what you did, what Mr. Ahidjo did. Do it in order to foster what Mr. Biya said in Paris, foster the process of assimilation. It was never something to get an individual and unique Cameroon that is good for everybody tomorrow. So the only way to stop this war in the Cameroons is to sit down and talk. And if it means that you people no longer live as one partner, so be it. We can go to a referendum. That's how we did that referendum in 1972 to be won. You can absolutely go into another referendum again and decide that, and let the people decide. Do we want to live with these people as a single entity, or we don't want to? What's the problem with that? Why don't they bring that particular solution at the table?
Dr. Mwage, before you respond, I do get to your point that the president is doing a lot of things to resolve the problem, but it was one big thinker who said, if you keep doing the same thing over and over, expecting different results, that's the definition of insanity. If you were advising President Biya, what would you tell him to do differently, sir?
President Biya is doing what the nation has asked him to do. It's not President Paul Biya's will. It's the national will. When you look at the Grand National Dialogue, President Paul Biya did not send any instruction. He instructed that the nation should sit down and see on how to resolve the crisis so that the nation can move forward. And everybody within the polity, all stakeholders were invited. The diaspora as well was invited. Everybody, political parties, tribal leaders, everyone who is within the Cameroon polity as a stakeholder had a say to draw up the recommendations of the Grand National Dialogue. There is no other way where the national voice, where there is a small voice, will be more than a national voice. Given that, the nation sat down and said, this is our solution. We should not forget, the learned barrister is saying about two people coming out. These are nations. It's just like, let's say, Germany, East Germany and West Germany are having issues now, and they'll start fighting that they divide themselves.
Please hold your thought there. We have somebody on the line. Hello, this is, you are watching Voices of Africa. You are on the line, sir. Please be quick, straight to the point, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much, moderator. I want to thank your panelists. My question goes to Dr. Koge. You said the president has done a lot of things to appease the English-speaking people of Cameroon.
Yeah.
You remember these English-speaking people came as equal partners to the union. But now, the first English-speaking authority, who is the prime minister, what position does he have in Cameroon? Mm-hmm. You go to your ministers. How many English-speaking ministers hold real ministries? We have just two, territorial administration and education now.
Yeah.
So you go, how many English speaking are SDOs? Go to governors, go to all the positions. So how can you, how is he trying to solve the problem of the English speaking people in Cameroon?
Yeah.
And so,
Yes.
that is my question to you.
All right.
Because, yes.
To be honest,
just hold on. Hold on.
That is a genuine concern. But if you find out,
let me land. Let me even land.
Okay.
Yes, you are saying that in the government has solved the problem raised by the teachers and the lawyers, and you quote the Ohada law. What is even that Ohada law? Is that Ohada law? Do you know the content? Is it important for the English-speaking court? So you should, that Ohada law is not even important in our court.
So
now talking about
are you discarding the knowledge of all the lawyers in Cameroon accepting it being translated? Are you
Dr. Morgan, Dr. Morgan, just hold.
We have seen students in secondary schools.
Caller, just end up your question, then drop off, and then Dr. Morgan
we saw students in secondary schools in Bamenda protesting about their teachers, that they are sending them English-speaking teachers of recent. It's not just last month. Just last year, we saw them. So how has the government solved the problems? As you said, you are painting a picture, a good picture. So we want to know how the government has solved this problem. Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. Yes, Dr. Mbage, respond and quickly.
Yes, sir. Thank you for your question. You know, first of all, conflict resolution, you know it better. Conflict resolution is not a knee-jerk action where you switch on the lights and you get the solution. It's a progress. You do not expect everything to be perfect overnight. So I'm with you there. If you still have some skirmishes where we have this problem where teachers are teaching in pidgin, as the barrister mentioned the other time, and I was telling him these are micro problems, we will find them, but things are progressing because the man in charge, President Paul Biya, has vowed to make sure that the Anglophone problem is solved. And I'm telling you this, there are being bond, how do we call this, concourse for teachers recruitment, Anglo-Saxon teachers recruitment, over the 3 years since this recommendation started taking place. We do not have problems now with shortages of teachers of Anglo-Saxon backgrounds. We don't have that problem.
Yeah,
and this problem is a gradual solution. You cannot just solve it overnight. So I am aware that you will find examples still going on, but look at the national and the bigger picture. The problem is being resolved as a state policy.
Your point has been taken, Dr. Mbage. There's a question that just came back by text. The caller says, Dr. Mbage, take note of this. The president is Francophone. The Senate president, who is next in command, is Francophone. The president of the National Assembly, third in command, is Francophone. And then you have a distant fourth, Anglophone, who is the prime minister. Where's the justice here?
Okay. As a Cameroonian citizen, we should not forget that we have a nation now. We don't have nations or two nations. We have a nation. And this nation is a nation that is a basket of diversity. You know, we have more than 240 tribes. We have 240 different ethnic groups. We are not, I don't think that the president, whom I said is a Republican, is looking at who speaks French or who speaks English before he appoints or selects who is given a job to serve our nation. Because this man is a Republican, he believes in the merit and he believes in what you have to offer to be able to be given a job. I don't think the president is looking at who is a Francophone, who is an Anglophone to be put here. Most of those ministers and people you see in government today, I will tell you, are people who have sacrificed themselves to serve the nation. And I believe the head of state has found that, you know, that value in them to put them on those seats, not based on their languages or their backgrounds,
Your point has been taken. Barrister, you want to respond? Then I will make some remarks. Then both of you will come up on the platform to give your concluding remarks. Now, because we have to end at some point, Barrister Akufo, how do you respond to this? He says that the president is not concerned about linguistic heritages or backgrounds. He's looking for competent people. If I got Dr. Mbwage, what's your response to that?
Well, I think there's a lot of competence in the people of Southern Cameroon's extraction. And it is not a coincidence that the line of succession that you read out there, it's something that's been real programmed, because they don't want these other people to ever, get within a distance to power in Cameroon. So there is absolutely no reason why he could have thought these things differently, that it's based on merit. No, it's not based on merit. Because if you look at one of the other people you listed there, again, I don't take people's health to be something that we should take, we should, say something bad about. But I think if at certain levels you realize that there are people who cannot really perform certain duties, you shouldn't put them there, because one of those people you listed, he cannot, he is not very functional in terms of, able to dispense justice, able to dispense the dictates of the administration. So if it is not merit, why not put younger people like you, Dr. Mbwage, to, in such positions? Why lead for people that you say because they've been subservient to the state, you want them to be there forever? Why not take younger and more dynamic and stronger people to lead those positions? Why put all this, people of the oligarchy? It's not really, again, I don't want to go into that particular aspect because it's not based on merit.
You are watching Voices of Africa. Hold on, there's somebody on the line. We will be wrapping up momentarily, but not before. Okay, hello, how are you?
Good evening to you, for the panel. I want to thank you all for the knowledge you are putting out there.
Yes, please.
I want to ask Doctor a question, because you keep it seems you are like a CPD man, keep just appreciating all what President Biya has done. I just want to just do a small quick check from the beginning of this debate up to this present moment. When you look at the period of time Biya has been as the president of the Republic of Cameroon, he took over from Aijo. And taking over from Aijo, you yourself saw certain industries that were being helping Cameroonians economically. But today, you don't even see 20% of those industries. Cameroon is importing toothpicks from China. And you tell me President Biya is building Cameroon. Look at the road infrastructure from the extreme north of Cameroon, the far north, down to the south, the east, and the west. Cameroon doesn't have a constructive auto road or a good tar road that can show the 40 years of President Biya being in power. Putting that aside, when you talk of Biya is constructing Cameroon, look at the manpower. Biya took over Cameroon when Cameroon was about 11 million. Cameroon is today 25 million by estimation. Where are industries which educated young Cameroonians can be involved with? Where is the manpower of our technical education? Look at all the Canadian schools that were constructed. Today, they are like mushroom schools. These are schools that could be turned to be technical universities, technical higher institutions. But look at where they are today, especially in the English-speaking part. They have been destroyed. The machines are rotten. When we talk of Cameroon being developed, I will tell you, look at countries like Rwanda. Rwanda had a genocide in 1994. Look at the level of Rwanda today. Kigali is the most beautiful and the most cleanest city in Africa, if you don't know. Look at Yaoundé. Yaoundé is one of the mushroom capital in Africa. I will call it mushroom because if probably is saying you have stayed out for 20 years, for your 20 years being out of Cameroon, and look at the Cameroon of today, and look at the Cameroon during the period of Aijo, look at the Tico Airport, look at the Douala Airport, look at the Yaoundé Simaland Airport. Look at, it's not something for us to talk. I would thank Barrister for saying something that be honest and be truthful, because people are listening too.
Okay,
don't say something that tomorrow a child will, let's say, Prof, what you say like that is a taboo. Let's be honest when we are saying things. We know Biya have tried, but Biya haven't gone to the level of 30% for 40 years being the president of a country. He came here to the United States for African US Summit. I mean, it was a taboo for our president, a man even unable to identify himself in the midst of people. That is not how a country is supposed to look like. When we talk of democracy, we should be open. We should be open to people. Journalists are being murdered without, I mean, that is not what we talk of democracy. We should be exposed to the world and learn what other people are doing.
You know,
we should learn what people are doing.
Can I get in?
Yeah,
thank you.
All right. Thank you, sir.
That was not a question. That was just an addition to it.
That's right.
Keep watching.
So it's analysis.
Dr. Mboage, President Biya has been in power for 40 years. Do you honestly think that Cameroon deserves better in terms of infrastructural development, or this is the best the president could do?
I will say this again. You know, when somebody has been arrested, like the nation has arrested President Paul Biya, it is because President Paul Biya is the best we have, is the most popular we have, is the kindness we have, is the most visionary that we have. And if what we have today is the best, then that is the best under the situation that President Paul Biya met Cameroon. Because us who are behind supporting the president as our national chairman in the party know him for one thing. We know he is a person who wants the best for everybody, not for a minor group of people. So if our development is not seen as fully blown, like what you see in movies, New York, skyscrapers, bridges, roads everywhere, as we estimate, as we want, as we expect, we understand, I understand, we are in the age of, you know, technology, social media and everything, and a lot of fake news and a lot of misinformation is driving people, you know, with different ideas, and comparative analysis are very unfair in this type of environment. So I understand that. But you asked me a question, if I genuinely believe President Paul Biya is doing his best, I will say yes, he's doing more than his best, given the country he has taken hold of with care, united, and given us the security that we need. Our resources are intact. Development is there slowly but surely. And with the ideas of other people thinking that we are not developing, it is just a matter of miscalculation and misjudgment.
Okay,
that is what I would say.
Your point taken. Briefly, sir, how do you respond to Dr. Mboage? He says President Biya is doing his best given the circumstances. Why isn't he accurate in what he's saying, in his assessment?
I mean, yes, he's doing his best. We never deny that he's not doing his best, you know. But given the society, how long do we want the same person to be doing his best and crumbling the society hundreds of years backwards? You know, your best in 40 years is the end is a civil war. Your best in 40 years is primary schools that are being staffed with English primary schools that are being staffed with French teachers. Your best in 40 years is marketing board no longer producing coffee and cocoa in the southern Cameroons. Your best in 40 years is when Santa Coffee is no longer producing coffee again in Santa. Your best in 40 years, that's what we've come to. Unemployment rampant, the economic power of the southern Cameroons, it's all been disengaged, brought down brought down. So that's the best in 40 years. So he's been doing his best. But I've told you, you said these are micro. It is not micro. I don't really understand, doctor, when you say the economic nerve agent of a particular state, of a particular society, like the produce marketing board, you call that micro. No, sir, that is not micro. That is macro. And if you're looking at, I told you about the same, you say, okay, you have to surrender a certain level of sovereignty in order to get certain things in development. That is absolutely true. That is absolutely true. But you don't surrender that at the expense of your constitution. There are other laws that you can write. You can write those laws. Look, if you live in the United Kingdom, I don't think that you sign a treaty between the United Kingdom and Cameroon, and you tell somebody in the British Parliament that if there is a conflict of laws, Cameroon law applies in their parliament. It will never happen, because they are in the first world and they tell you you're in a pseudo third world. You should not accept it that way. If you are accepting that, I think the future of Cameroonians or future Africans should not do that. That's something that it's really lacking in. Again, I'm not talking about you, Professor.
I know.
Most of our intellectuals, most of what our intellectuals, people who've been groomed outside, both inside and outside, to go back and lead the nation for tomorrow. Look, I think, again, I keep telling you, Professor, that the best thing is, I
have a question for you, Barrister. Just one question.
Go ahead.
Yes, please. Yes, ask the question and Barrister, be brief. Then I'm going to ask you
the sovereignty of our nation. Let's, for instance,
I'm sorry, the what?
When we just had independence, let's say 1961, our sovereignty was about, because it's a matter of degree, it's not absolute. Sovereignty is never absolute. How much could you give the percentage of our sovereignty then when we had independence?
No, so when you tell me sovereignty is not absolute, that is disingenuous, Professor.
No. I just want to get, because you told me we have no sovereignty. So I want to get what you think our percentage could have been compared to what you think our percentage is now.
No,
so I'm following your word.
Oh, okay, yes. Oh, yes. If that's your question that you're asking, what level of sovereignty we had at that point, and what level of sovereignty we have today. Yes, if you're asking me that question, let me tell you, we've never had it. We've never had it from the get-go. We've never had it till today. If that's your answer to your question, because, and again, I can elaborate on that.
Barrister, you have answered my question.
Okay.
And that's why I want to tell you that if President Biya is where he is today, is thanks to this duty of ensuring that our sovereignty is achieved, no matter the challenges.
No, Professor, that is still disingenuous from you. You cannot tell me that at the level of independence, our sovereignty was never granted, fully granted, until today. It is still not there. It is still not there, because
we have got it. Today we are a sovereign nation. Cameroon is recognized internationally in its various spheres where we even dominate. We are known as one of the best in Africa when it comes to, security, taking along orders.
Not interrupting you, since you have both of you have made those points. I'm going to ask you.
He is helping the Central African Republic to be how it should be, security at the top, secure, and all whatnot.
I'm going to ask you one question.
Thanks to Cameroon being a leader. So we cannot judge our sovereignty at the moment. And there are other aspects where Cameroon has taken lead on, even in the Commonwealth, in the Francophonie, in the UN, and with international partners, well recognized and given its space of leadership and authority. So we cannot say by any indication that we are where we were when we got independence. We are better off now, and that's thanks to President Paul Biya.
I'm going to ask you one question. I'm going to ask you the same question to Barrister and question to Dr. Mbwage, and your answers will be the closing your closing statements. The first question, it's going to be the only question. The question I'm asking you first, Dr. Barrister Akufo, is people are fighting now in the bush, and innocent civilians are being killed. They have been plunged into unbelievable, untold misery, some in Nigeria, some within Cameroon. What would you tell those fellows, those boys fighting in the bush to do? The question, and you're going to answer the same question, Dr. Mbwage. The question to you first, Barrister Akufo.
Is that the question, the answer, and the closing argument?
Yes, sir.
Okay. What I would I would not tell the people in the bush anything, because I have no control over them. I have no control over the government. The professor who is a politician, I think he can better articulate that particular part. But I think if somebody took a gun and goes and lives in the bush, it is something that has triggered that. The policies of the government, it's something that has pushed these people to the abyss where they decided to stand back and fight. So if that's where you are going, that's my response to that particular question. And to Dr. Boyge, I would like to close by, actually bringing this a little story of Rip Van Winkle, written through the pen of Ivan Washington, as narrated by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. This was somebody who slept through the revolution. This is somebody who went up through the mountains, and decided to take a nap. He took a nap, and by the time he went there, the signpost was showing King George. This is in the context of the American Revolution. The signpost was King George. He took a nap and ended up sleeping for 20 years. When he woke up, the signpost was no longer King George. It was George Washington. It was another George also. So that was the American Revolution. So he slept, and by the time he woke up, there was change already. By that particular context, I am praying that you could a little bit. I know I cannot change your mind, but maybe from this discourse, we might realize that we've tilted towards a particular point where tomorrow we may not sit again and articulate this very stuff again to another generation, and they see us positively. Because Mr. Biya, who happens to be the president of Cameroon today, he's been there for 40 years. Believe it or not, the last time I went to Cameroon, it is not the Cameroon that we left. It has deteriorated. If you tell me that the Human Development Index in Cameroon, it is not based on hospitals and good roads and good infrastructure, then you are not doing any service to the Cameroonian community that you purport to lead, or the young people of the CPDM that you purport to lead. I think, again, I still tell you, Antoine de Saint-Exupéry said, if civilizations do coalesce in favor of new ideologies, it's monstrous that they devour one another. We have to fight for something for tomorrow. We have to fight for the goodness of mankind. We have to fight for the goodness of humanity. But we should not peddle lies or things that are falsehoods, that you can see it glaringly. Young people who've been foisted into the bushes because they have no future within that particular enclave. It is not just in the southern Cameroon, it is in the other part of Cameroon. And you cannot tell me that the government has the solution. The government has no solution. Thank you so much. And again, thank you for staying up late this night. Thank you so much. And thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Barrister.
Dr. Mbwage, the question I ask you is, if you had a statement for those people carrying guns in the bush, because at some point this has got to come to a stop. People are dying, innocent civilians are suffering, the misery is unbelievable. Anybody who has traveled to Cameroon or to Nigeria can confirm what I'm saying. What would you tell those brothers and sisters of yours with guns in the bush fighting the central government in Yaoundé?
I will tell them this. My brothers, my sisters, haven't you heard? Haven't you heard that there is already a solution and the solution is being implemented? Haven't you heard that the president is still open, with open hands, waiting for you to drop these guns, join DDR centers, and get back to the society and embrace new opportunities waiting for you guys. Haven't you heard that the current political dispensation that we all thought it is difficult to get is now being implemented? That is the decentralization that we all were fighting for. Now it's being implemented to maximum. President Paul Biya has given you the opportunity now to come along so that we can build the Cameroon that we all want. We can build our regions. You can build your regions the way you want. Thank God for the special statuses. We can now, as Anglophones, build our regions the way we want. So I will tell them that it is time for us to come together and build the Cameroon the way we want, thanks to the solutions given by the head of state, who has listened to our cries as children of the nation. And then I'll go back to the barrister,
yes,
who concluded very nicely. But I want to tell him that it's always good, you know, when you are watching somebody who is building, it's easy to see mistakes. There's a proverb in Africa, in Malawi, where they said a thief who has not got an opportunity to steal, or who has never had an opportunity to steal, thinks he's a good person. Meanwhile, when you are given that opportunity, you steal more than the thieves that we know. So that is the problem with Africa. I've told you on this platform that President Paul Biya is a chosen one. We, the Cameroonians, have chosen him. We have arrested him because he is the best. He is a Republican working for the good of all. He is not identifying himself as a tribal person working for a few. He is working for the good of all. He has a vision. The 2035 vision has made Cameroon, presently as we speak, what the Frenchman call a chantier. Cameroon is being built.
All right. I hope next year I travel to Cameroon as I plan to. I'll probably be driving on the freeway, the belt we will call in Maryland. Thank you guys for coming. I could see the barrister shaking his head in disapproval.
The barrister will be surprised. If we call an election tomorrow, I tell the barrister he should go to Cameroon and witness it for himself. If we call an election tomorrow, if he has to stand or any other person stands against President Paul Biya, with the picture he has put him here, he will be surprised, because the nation will still choose President Paul Biya. I am convinced on that.
Of course, they will choose him.
Thank you, Doctor.
They will choose him.
Thank you. Again, guys, you understand we
it's
have to end somewhere.
Because that's the reality. We are living the reality. We are arguing the reality, which is so strange.
All right, sir. We'll find another time to come here and continue the conversation. I want to thank all the people, Lilian Kuna, Christina, brother. Everybody, I want to thank Dr. Elvis Mwoge. It's really late night in London, but you stayed up to participate in this broadcast. I want to also thank the barrister. It's been a very civil conversation. This is the kind of conversation I like on Voices of Africa, I like on Healthline, I like on Family Matters. These are the three programs running on this platform. I want to thank also my producer in Lagos, who is up this night. It's late in Nigeria, but he stayed up to produce this program so you can watch it on different platforms. Roger Full. Thank you, gentlemen. It was wonderful having this conversation with both of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Only thing I have for you is a piece of beautiful music, which I recorded yesterday somewhere in Maryland. I hope you will like it. I will share that and with the audience. Here we go, and I'll come with the closing. And it's on that beautiful note that we conclude this broadcast. Voices of Africa on Chat Night. My name is Divine and Chiamukong. I'm the host. On this platform, we have Healthline, we have Voices of Africa, which you've just been watching, and we have Family Matters. If you know anybody who thinks selflessly, transforming challenges into opportunities, by all means, let us know. We'd like to this platform so that, yes, together we can make a difference. I want to thank all of those people who have been contributing for this platform to look this beautiful. I could not do that all by my own. It takes a lot of money to do this. I thank you. A lot of you chose to remain anonymous, and I do appreciate that. That's called selflessness. That's how we wrap up this edition of Voices of Africa, anchored here in Washington, D.C. Yeah. Goodbye and have a productive week. Bye for now.
I'm coming back. I'm coming back. I'm coming to get down. I'm coming to dance, We're gonna dance, we're gonna get down, we're gonna party hardy, we're gonna boogie woogie, and when we jam, it's out of sight. This song right here, it's dynamite. I'm ready, I'm coming back.